Let's talk about the ketogenic diet. Esslinger's, Dr. Robert Esslinger's says he starts with bulletproof coffee. I mean, the diet is just atrocious. But this whole idea, the whole philosophy behind this is interesting to me. Now keep in mind that when you have the word inflammation, that's a medical's terminology for, and actually it's not even just medical, it's just our terminology for acidosis. You know, a lot of people think inflammation is the problem. It isn't. It is the response, not the problem. So you have to ask yourself, what's it in response to? And when we go over these ketogenic diets and these acid alkalins, so you get a better perspective of the truth of this, realize the missing link medically is the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is the major fluid-based system next to water of the human body there is, not blood. Blood's just a simple chemical delivery system. It must maintain a pH, and that is obvious. And we're going to talk about that. But the ketogenic people think that, again, starvation of the carbohydrates. And this is what's interesting to me, that a lot of these levels of thinking feel that they have to eliminate the carbohydrates, the sugars. The bad thing about that is where you get your energy. And this article is by Mary Budinger, and she's trying to say in this article that energy called fermentation is like, what? Energy called fermentation? Energy called adenosines. That's all your phosphates. And so, I mean, there is energy at every level, there's no question, but the cells don't get their energy off of fermentation. That's, you could not get energy from fermentation, but we like to keep the fermentation part of the body down because we have oxidation, we have combustion, we have all kinds of things. But fermentation is not an area that, look up in your medical books, you know, and there's nowhere do you see the energy. There is energy released in all chemical processes. Any enzymatic activity, which is everywhere. Remember, an enzyme is a catalyst needed in all chemical reactions. So there's untold enzymes in the universe. They're little catalysts. Like water's the universal solvent. And here she says the prime cause of cancer is the replacement of the respiration of oxygen in normal body cells by fermentation of sugar. What? That doesn't even make sense. You know, the cause of cancer? You know, these people have no clue. When you're dealing with people that have no clue what the word cancer is and what it means, then anything associated with their concept of treatment of that or dealing with that is obviously not true either. You got to go back and realize cancer isn't a disease that somehow manifests out of nowhere. That's only medical thinking because they can't explain to you what causes it. But life is cause and effect, and this level is a chemical level. So it's cause and effect in chemistry, always. All chemistry is electromagnetic, guys. Yes, we have our electrolytes and we have ionization, and we turn on, so to speak. We ionize atoms. And all that is the sharing of electrons and then the creating of compounds and molecules and things like that on into, you know, your bigger structures and on and on and on, kind of like you're putting a Lego set together. But the claims here, and then she claims that the goal is to keep you in ketosis. And if you're a diabetic, especially a type 1, you're going to know what ketosis is. Matter of fact, Marcy wanted to sit here with me, but she's been so busy, to tell you, you know, her hospital visits are generally ketosis visits. I had one mother call me once, I think I told you, and she is a young type 1, of course, and she went into ketosis, which is the same thing as acidosis, basically. Ketoacidosis, basically the same thing. Your body can't handle, there's a balance in chemistry, and it's simplistic. When we start getting into more complex structures, that's when we have more problems, in every way, especially when you have an acid-ash element involved in this. But some of these claims in this sort of thing, cancer cells cannot ferment fats, but they can ferment sugar, and they do that really well. What are you talking about in this article? Cancer cells produce extra glucose. Cancer cells don't produce, they demand. Why? If you have no energy, you're going to demand more and more forms of energy. You need energy. That's not the problem. If the problem is acidosis, the problem is corrosive acids intracellularly. You got to get to the real cause of what mutates a cell. You can't just out here and hypothesize all this bullcrap. What damages a cell in your body? Well, what two fluids flow around every cell you have, and only two fluids, except for the water, blood and lymph. So if you want to be factual about diseases, then you have to pull back and be factual about chemistry and how the body works, not in some hypothetical theory type of craziness where it's an autoimmune because you can't explain it. And then everybody falls suit right down that line, ketogenic people and everybody else. And you guys don't want to live in that world of ignorance and unawareness, because it gets you nowhere but hurting. That one lady now, and I mean, one, Tom feels like we got hundreds of them. And they just let the medical doctors take them down the road of massive radiation, massive chemotherapy, and then expect us to try to save them at the last minute. And it's like, you got to get awake a little more. You got to decide. Your choice in how you treat your problems determines what your life is going to be like and whether you're still going to be on the planet or not. Pretty bad when you go to a medical doctor and your chances of survival are maybe 6 to 15%. And I'll give them, I think breast cancer is now, with all the things they're doing and everything, up to 20%. But that's not curative from chemo. That's none of that. You remember, there's no cure to that sort of issue. You don't cure an acid condition in the body with more acids. And so this is amazing to me. Glucose transporters to enable more sugar to enter their cell membrane. So she doesn't get it off here. They don't produce it, but they accept it through their membrane. Only with what? If you're talking about glucose, what carrier do you need for glucose? Insulin. The fermentation process turns glucose and the amino acid glutamine into sufficient quantities of energy. That's not how the body gets energy, not through fermentation. There's proper digestion. Fermentation takes place when you don't have proper enzymatic action. That's what you don't want. You don't want fermentation and putrefaction in the body. You want proper enzymatic action and oxidation and all this whole process of breakdown and the release of energy through the adenosines. Not through fermentation. That sets you up for alcohol. And to be honest with you, the average person is an alcoholic. This is something we've never talked about, but the average person is very much an alcoholic. When you combine protein and starches, or you put fruits on top of any other food, you're going to become an alcoholic. I told you the story of the man who was arrested in town here for DUI in the morning. He was arrested. And he was an older man going to Home Depot. And his wife, and this was in the newspaper, he had a big bowl of oatmeal for breakfast, and then he wanted watermelon, and then he put a piece of watermelon on top of the oatmeal. That is a huge no-no. Which do you think digests quicker? Watermelon or oatmeal? Of course watermelon. So you want fermentation in the release? That's not energy, baby. That's creating alcohol. There's little bitty spurts of energy released at little levels, but this is not what the body needs. So, I mean, this whole article is just ridiculous, in my opinion. It's just my thoughts and my opinion, right? No country boy. But not enough to do the big jobs required of normal cells, like pumping blood and giving it. I mean, this article is unreal. And then the diet is simply atrocious. Let me see what else I can read about this. Dr. Ward was considering perhaps the greatest give me a break. Physician emission tomography. Let me see. Cancer by conforming a radioactive. Look at this. Here it is. So what if you starve the cancer cells of their sugary fuel? Now this is an Atkins philosophy, and she's starting to go that way. So what if you starve the cancer cells of their sugary fuel? All right? So remember this. What you do to one cell, that's right, you do them to them all. This idea that you're going to target and that there's a chemotherapy targeting is bull hockey. The only way you can target is frequencies, because that's what this is into, and the medical profession is not even close to being that awake to understand frequencies of everything like that. Rife was kind of saying, hey, think about frequencies of parasites and kill them, and that'll cure cancer. He was assuming it was a parasitic problem. Excuse me? They're the effect, not the cause. See, medical people just keep attacking the effect of things and not dealing with the cause of things. That's why there's so many people getting killed with that theory. So you can't, this whole concept of starving a cell for sugar. What if we switch the fuel we put in the body to something cancer cells cannot use? Enter the ketogenic approach. That's why none of these approaches work. The only thing that the ketogenic approach helps is that it's a high fat. And lipids are what the lymph system is about. That is the lipid system in the body, not the blood. You don't dump lipids into the blood. Obvious reasons. All right? Think of fluidity. Think of pH. Think of a lot of things like that. So your lymph system is your lipid-based system, and it is 80% of interstitial fluid. Just add the interstitial and the lymph. They're all the same, in my opinion. So this whole concept is off on a ridiculous start. You can't starve any cell. Going back to Atkins and how many people that guy killed. I mean, no one understands how many people he hurt and killed with that stupid philosophy. You're going to starve a cell for sugar, you're going to, and that'll make you lose weight. I mean, it's buffering along that same idiocy. Starve your body for sugar, and of course it's going to break down your glycogen and your fat storages for sugar, of course, because you have to have it for fuel. But if you think you're going to starve cancer cells and not your other ones, you're crazy. This is all ridiculous stuff. And it doesn't even take in the species. It doesn't take in proper nutrition and health. It doesn't take in the proper understanding of what causes the damage to a cell, how you mutate the chromosomes and DNA and RNA, how you affect these things. How do you get genetic weaknesses out of cells? If you can't answer some of these questions, what are you doing as a practitioner? But then again, I'm just a country boy. I don't know. He said cancer is a mitochondria metabolitic disease. Well, there's a half-truth. Mitochondria, yeah, all your organelles of your cells get damaged just like any other tissue in your body from acids. Everything metabolically breaks down into acids if you haven't noticed. This idea that the body can turn everything into water and carbon dioxide is not quite on the realm of things. Your body has to get rid of a lot of acid waste, and they're not all converted to water and base, not even close. So enter this whole bicarbonate. We're going to get into the bicarbonate thing a little more, even though Pat and I did that already, but the kidney bicarbonate and all that sort of thing. Because the game here in the physical world and life is two forces interplaying with each other. And that's true all the way down to the subatomic and nano levels. You can't escape duality. And you can explain everything that happens from that point of view, because if you can't, you're not sitting on the throne of truth. Because everything is created from this. And you can't create something that doesn't exist. That's not in our limited individuality's ability at this point. Most people. But yeah, the mitochondria, I mean, these are tissues in the intracell that gets damaged. But when you, think of yourself as being constipated. I mean, for days and days and days. And you're a meat eater. And how that putrefaction brings your consciousness down and gives you the headaches and depression and all of that crap. Imagine that intracellular. And that's what you have to understand. This is just cell damage from its own metabolites. Its own metabolites. They're not entering the cell, they're from the cell itself. You know, this is a constant, I've said this many times, your body's just simply a sensory food processor. Your body is constantly in the processing of chemistry. And the average person, even biochemists, don't really understand it. You know, there's theories everywhere. And a theory can get you a cup of coffee nowhere. Maybe in some little cafe in my town, sitting around rapping about things. Mitochondria become dependent on glucose and glutamine for fuel. Give me a break. The body is going to seek fuel where it has to. And if you're going to starve the body for a sugar, which is insanity, has nothing to do about curing anything, and it's just one of the most ridiculous theories I've ever heard, you're going to go up to, in fact, one animal eats like that. There is nothing in nature that eats like that, and you're trying to treat what you don't understand with a diet that's almost all acid base. I mean, acid ash forming foods. I mean, this guy's, they say what his diet is. This Dr. Robert Esslinger's. His ketogenic day is bulletproof coffee or some chi tea or black tea. Okay, I'll get with that maybe. It is made with a teaspoon of coconut oil, a teaspoon of butter. And yeah, here comes the butter and a lot of cream. Heavy cream. So, don't tell me he's not going to get a lot of congestion out of this one. Oh, yeah. Wow, this is amazing. Then he said, I skip breakfast and could say I practice intermittent fasting until lunch. Intermittent fasting till lunch? One should simply have a bowl of fruit and then you don't need anything till lunch. Why would you need to, in anything, eat a piece of fruit? But if I wanted to eat in the morning, it would be bacon and 2 eggs. Now it's scrambled though, because the beneficial of fat comes from a soft yolk. What? This is the kind of, I can imagine the consciousness of this individual. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I won't even go on for that one. He's got 80% chocolate, he's got almond milk, coconut milk, raw eggs. Okay, I'll get you the raw egg. Could be a hard-boiled egg with asparagus or half a chicken breast with broccoli. Could be wild catch seafood and steamed veggies, especially the cruciferous ones. Everybody wants the sulfur ones. And then you have gas and bloaty stuff the rest of the day. I like that one. Want fried chicken? Get fried pork rinds from the butcher. Crush them with a rolling pin. I mean, this is a joke. When it comes to health, the ketogenic consciousness is a joke. And you don't want to fall into these things, especially if you're fighting the C word and your time is very limited. You cannot create ketosis of the human body and maintain it. They want you to maintain a state of ketosis and low blood sugar. What? I mean, this is a type of stupidity that abounds out there, and people are falling into this right and left because they don't understand truth and the simple remedy to their suffering. And I could go on, but it just... Let's see. Protein is also limited because once sugar is gone, cancer cells can access free amino acids from the breakdown of protein and use them as fuel. We just had that discussion. How stupid of a statement that is. Remember the cabin out in the woods? and the snow comes and you can't get out of the cabin because the snow's above the door, and all you can do, your wood is packed up out on your porch. So you got a little bit of wood hanging around the fireplace, and basically I'm going to burn the curtains, the couch. I'm going to burn everything I can. Because the final analysis, if you can't get out, after you burn everything, where are you going? Your walls. You're going to break down the wood walls and burn your wood, that's your structure. And that's what burning amino acid for fuel is burning your structure. And they have the audacity to say that in there? You burn your structure for fuel, you burn amino acid for fuel, you're going to get yourself in major, major trouble. You'll start losing muscle, you're going to break yourself right down. And that is not a pretty picture and not a healthy picture whatsoever. I don't know where these people come from. This was in the Townsend newsletter, I believe. Yeah, it was in the Townsend newsletter. We go through this because they have some good articles at times, but other things are just like ridiculous. You guys want to get real smart and not buy into a lot of this kind of stuff. This is just like insanity kind of stuff. And they call it a metabolitic dysfunction and all that. There's no dysfunction to anything. Life is simply cause and effect. And your diet is the key cause of whatever you're suffering from. If you're suffering from a state of health, then you're eating raw foods. And you're predominantly fruits, berries, melons, and salads. If you're suffering from dis-ease, then you're eating acid ash-forming foods. Grains, beans, meats, milks, crap like that. And unfortunately, that's the side that causes all man's problems. And until you correct that, you can treat it any way you want, with toxic pharmaceuticals, with ketogenic craziness, all this kind of stuff, and you ain't going anywhere. You're not going to get to Wellville and vitalness and robustness. Never. Never. And for those of you that are fighting tumors and you know, you're going down, this will just accelerate that. So you want to be very careful with how you do things out there.